For those times when you want to set your RGB and your setup to full send, Corsair's got you covered. Many of you have seen those advertisements all over the internet showing lighting around your television or your display matching whatever's on your screen. And I thought this was a really cool concept. So I wanted to get in on the bandwagon. First, I started by picking up the Logitech G560 speakers, thinking, well, you know, you're paying a little bit more for these speakers, you know, probably about 75 Canadian dollars more for the speakers than you could for an equivalent speaker set without RGB. But I thought, you know, maybe that's going to be enough. The Logitech G560s produce a lot of really cool lighting on the sides of the computer, but with the speakers down on the desk and the display mounted just a little bit higher, the lighting barely reaches about halfway up the side of the monitor. So the Corsair LS100 Starter Kit comes with 4 RGB strips for the back of your monitor. Today we'll go through unboxing and installing those lighting strips and see if we can get that pristine lighting look that everybody's getting on the advertisements, and to see whether or not they work as advertised. All right, so let's get this box opened up. We'll slice open the little plastic strips here. And let's take a look at what we've got inside. All right, so inside the box, we've got what appears to be whatever their lighting controller is here. And so that's one starter piece. Got some 3M stickies in here, probably for installing the lighting strips on the back of the monitor. We've got some stickies, cabling and wires, USB cord, a whole bunch more magnetic little stickies with 3M on the back. And so this kit is designed to be magnetically adhered to these little mounting points. Let's get this one open. You just have a lowly power adapter. So let's get this opened up. And we've got 2 longer lighting strips and 2 shorter lighting strips. So the longer ones obviously for the top and bottom of the monitor, and the shorter ones for the sides of the monitor. So installation is pretty easy. We'll take the little controller, we'll remove the 3M adhesive strips, mount that to the back of the monitor. So these just have an adhesive magnetic backing to them, and they just clip on. So each one of these mounting points is just going to require one of these little metal pieces to be adhered to the back of the display, and then that's going to allow these to magnetically attach to the back of the monitor. So now that this top lighting strip is installed, I wanted to actually mention that I did use one plastic anchor on the end here, and I'll put another one on the other end to hold this in place because it was sagging quite a lot. There is no magnet on the first or last kind of mount point, so it doesn't really hold itself in place all that well. So using a little anchor to hold just on the edge here is working quite well. And now I'll be able to actually mount the next strip kind of on the back. Now, the tricky thing with this monitor is that only the edge is actually flat. The rest is pretty curved, and that's because this is a curved monitor. So I'll be trying to put this as close to the edge as I can as far as the mounting of the strip itself. And I want to try to mount it so that it's as kind of equal as I can, just eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect, just to ensure that that light can hit the back side of the wall. What I'll do is I'll actually connect the first strip that's connected to the controller to the second strip here. And I'm just going to try to route this in such a way that the strip can be as close to the outside edge as possible, just because I do have a curved monitor. Now it's not that big of a deal because these are adjustable, where you can slide these two for the magnets to here. So it's not needing to be absolutely perfect by any means. So now we know where our controller is going to go. Now I actually want to kind of hide the cable, so I want to move the cable along the back and make it so that the cable's not visible. Again, trying to clean up and make the cables as clean as possible here. So I'm actually going to route this controller sideways so that I can route all the cables along and down the tube. Removing these strips seems to be a little bit difficult. They like to stick initially and try to peel off the actual adhesive bits. So you may need to use your thumb to hold the actual adhesive strip down while you pull those off. Alright, so we're going to adhere this right about here, just like that. And then we can go ahead and put in the strips on the other side, and we'll just do the same thing. We're just going to mount them to match kind of as close to the outside as we can, the top, and then we'll run the bottom strip as well. The bottom strip will be a little bit trickier because there is an indent here, but we'll just run it along the inside, along the indent. So now that I've got all the lighting strips installed, I'm going to go ahead and get the power adapter and the USB plugged in, and then we'll power this thing on and see if it looks good or if this is a hard pass. So initially I wanted to test this with the lighting on in the room, and just playing Cyberpunk 2077. Kind of expecting a little more light, to be honest. I can see the light from the Logitech G560 speakers, but I actually can't see any lighting from the Corsair LS100s. Now this is pretty bright. I should see at least something. If I turn off the Logitech speakers, I actually don't really see any ambient lighting coming through from the back. Now I can guarantee you right now the strips are on. They're just not really bright enough to do anything. So let's turn the lights off and see if it makes any kind of a difference. So now with the lights off, you can kind of see that there is some ambient lighting, but it is very, very dim. I mean, the lights are off in the room right now. There's a tiny, tiny bit of daylight coming in through the window, but I should see a lot more lighting. You know, for reference, here are the Logitech speaker LEDs, and here are the LS100 LEDs. And that's just not very bright. So I've heard that turning G-Sync off can help. So let's go turn G-Sync off, and we'll see if that makes any difference to the brightness whatsoever. All right, so we turned off G-Sync. We're still not really noticing that much of a difference. It does provide some ambient lighting. I mean, there is definitely some ambient lighting going around the sides of the screen. But it's just not bright enough. It's, you know, for what you pay for these lighting strips, it needs to be a lot brighter. So while it's kind of a cool gimmick and, you know, it's kind of a cool feature, it's just not bright enough to really make that much of a difference. And in all their marketing material, you can see just how bright they advertise that these LEDs are, but they're really not. There are no brightness controls in Corsair IQ to be able to make them brighter. And so, you know, these lighting strips, while they do provide some ambient lighting, which is kind of cool, and it does do what it should do. You know, you see some of the lighting kind of extending beyond the screen. It does add some ambient lighting, but the LEDs aren't bright enough to hardly even be seen in this dark room. Well, if I turn on the Logitech G560s, you can see the brightness is just far superior to that of the Corsair LEDs, and they're not that far away from the wall. They're only about 5 to 6 inches from the wall. Corsairs definitely have better immediate response time to the ambient lighting than the G560s, but Corsair, you guys, you got to make these brighter. Even at the lower color boost settings for the G560s, you still get far superior lighting than the Corsair lighting strips, which is really disappointing. You know, these Corsair lighting strips, they are advertised as being extremely bright, providing a lot of color and background, and for all intents and purposes, these lighting strips are practically useless. Now, I've heard that using HDR settings on our monitor might be able to improve the situation, so let's give that a try and see if that makes any difference whatsoever. So with HDR enabled, actually the colors on the screen are diminished quite substantially. I do prefer more vibrant colors not using HDR. So this actually looks kind of not very great in HDR, to be honest. The standard gaming modes are a lot better. I would say there's a little bit of extra brightness from the LEDs, but it's still extraordinarily dim. So let's look at, you know, right there. That's kind of the brightest those LEDs get. And let's turn on our Logitech G560s and just see how much brighter that actually is. So, you know, the G560s don't really respond well or quickly. They're kind of delayed. So Logitech has to do some work on their lighting system a little bit clearly. Whereas the Corsair is almost immediately responding, which is nice, but the Corsair LEDs are just really not all that bright. I think Corsair needs to go back to the drawing board with this particular product and put much brighter LEDs. It's just not sufficient. And to be honest, their marketing is kind of a lie. What you see and what you get are two very different things. So what's the verdict with the LS100? Well, on the box it says, light it up. I say, throw it out. You know, when I first saw the LS100, I was really excited. I looked at the marketing materials and I saw that it was bright, that it was vibrant, and that it added a lot of ambient lighting. From testing today, I can tell you that the ambient lighting is barely any lighting at all, and you can't really even see the LEDs. I know that they're trying to diffuse the LEDs to try to make a more diffused look rather than having harsh and hot spots on the LEDs kind of brightening up on the wall, but this product should have never made it past quality control, in my opinion. Now, I love Corsair. I love their products, and normally I'm really happy to recommend a Corsair product. But with the LS100 Starter Kit, I just can't recommend it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.